Hello, my name's Eric Darden. I'm the horticulture manager at the Epcot International Flower Garden Festival. I'm really looking forward to showing you all around the festival today. I've been with Walt Disney World since 1987 when I left the University of Kentucky. I've had various roles, and I've been the Flower Garden Festival manager for 13 years, so it's been awful fun to watch it grow. We're awfully excited about this year's festival. It's a challenge because we're doing more new big things than we've done in a long time. Those of y'all who've been to a lot of festivals know that oftentimes we repeat gardens for several years before we redo them. This year it just so happens it worked out we're doing 3 brand new large gardens, and that's always a fun experience. Just doing a garden the second time is a lot easier than the first time, and this year we're doing a whole lot. We've got a lot of small new gardens, and as always, at least for the last 8 to 10 years, we're focusing heavily on not only tons of flowers and topiaries, but also edible plants, which we in the horticulture department have been growing now for almost 10 years. So before we get going, do you have any questions? That's unusual. One thing you'll notice is not in, and that's the front entrance. It's always our last big aha. We'll put it in next Monday night. We give ourselves one night in case something goes wrong. In 23 years, nothing has, but we're all convinced if we ever waited until Tuesday night, it would be an utter disaster. So we make sure we go in Monday night, which week at Tuesday, and then of course the festival opens on Wednesday. A lot of the things that are already in the park, and you'll see them, some of them are behind construction walls, but we're going to do a short tour before we actually go to the event today in World Showplace. Okay, no questions? So originally I wasn't planning on stopping here, but there's a neat story for those of you who are kind of interested in how we work in horticulture. A lot of people think, you know, we have all these elaborate plans for the Flower and Garden Festival. It's all blueprinted, just like building your house. All these gardens, it's not just people out there on a whim. So most people would think you just put what's in the blueprint and you call it a day. That's not the case. What we did here, if you see behind you, it's a sunburst out of flowers. We've actually done this before about 10 years ago. When we were discussing what we wanted to do here, we didn't think we did that one as good as we could, and it's been long enough that we can redo it. But when we saw it, we're like, okay, it hasn't filled in yet. So if you were to come back next week, you're going to see a lot more elements added into this garden. We're actually going to come in and add some height elements, just to zing it up a little bit. So again, that's kind of how we think. We're walking this festival every single day and looking at what we've put in. And it's very common. You'll say, okay, I know this is what we planned and this is good, because that's not a bad show, but how can we make it better? I often say the last thing you want to do is do a walk with the horticulture staff, because you could end up depressed, because we are just always pounding, how can we make this better? How can we make this better? What can we put in? And I'm going to talk that several times, so we're actually going to zing this up quite a bit. Several different ways we're going to do that. And of course, a lot of those plants that you see in there, certainly all the blue plants, by mid-late April, they're going to be gone and we'll have to replace them with something else. I should mention, as you all know, the Flower and Garden Festival now extends to June 30th. Excuse me, that would be something. May 30th. We'll do it. We know we can do it. It's just, we've never done a 90-day festival, but it's just a matter of continually keeping on top of it, every day walking the festival. When something starts looking a little old, bring in something new and replace it. And that's what it's going to be for us for the next 90 days. It's continually going out here and get on the phone, hey, we need 3,000 more plants, get them in here. And that's what it takes to keep the festival looking good all 90 days.
So maybe a third planting instead of just the
I wouldn't say, many of y'all know that when we went to 75 days, we had to add a second planting. I wouldn't say we're adding a third planting. We're pretty sure that the second planting is going to make it to summer. But again, it's uncharted territory for us going 90 days. So I would imagine there's going to be some beds that end up getting planted 3 times, but it's certainly not being planned for everything. Because the summer plants, which we put in later, they can usually take the heat. Every year we have displays that I think are going to kind of like surprise everyone, not steal the show, although this has the potential. And we thought of this because this is the 100th anniversary of the National Park Service, and we're actually working in conjunction with them to talk about the National Park Service, so eventually there'll be signage you hear talking it once festival opens up. We're also on some days going to have actual park rangers here staffing it. So when we were thinking about this bed, we knew we had Chip and Dale, and we wanted to use them. And what we do is set up the display here, because you walk up like, why is there a sandwich with Chip and Dale on that rock? It's unexplainable why it is. And in a minute, you'll walk around the other side and you'll see. Just a little insight thing, the Chip and Dale, we were happy to do those because we made them in scale with what we call our large Fab 5, which is used forever with Fab 5 in Daisy, and now we added Chip and Dale, which took it to 8. This year we're adding Huey, Dewey, and Louie, the same scale, which takes it to 11, which means that we'll now have 11 characters that are all on the same scale that we can, over the years, interact and use in different things. So that's one thing to look forward to in future years. We're always trying to get more of those classic characters that we can use together. It makes it easy to be creative. So you've seen the Chip and Dale, the National Park look here. You come around the other side, you'll get the story. There's going to be an apple and an apple core spilling out of his lunch bag, and hopefully guests will get it. Chip and Dale stole his lunch because he's here doing photo ops with our guests. We did this the first time 3 or 4 years ago. I want to say with Farmer, Mickey, and Minnie. Just to change things up, we switched them around, and what we found out, it makes a fantastic photo op, rivaling the front entrance because it's the place that you can get your photograph made with the character with Spaceship Earth in the background. So we did that the last couple of years. I wouldn't be surprised if we do that again. The guests love this. Actually, a lot of times the photo imaging cast member ends up being staffed here because they get so many requests for this location. In our opinion, in many of our opinions, this may be the best character Mickey we've done. Some people think the pirate was better, but he's strong. I mean, you can tell what he is without even that. He's Ranger Mickey. He's got the tree, he's got the binoculars, the hat, the satchel, and this turned out really well. And of course, then eventually what we're going to have here is signage all the way around the bed, talking about the National Park Service, explaining it, and talking about its 100th anniversary. And a lot of people don't know it's not just the Park Service, it's also national wildlife areas, things like that. It's very important. There's quite a few of them in Florida too. We're lucky to have a lot.
How did you end up partnering with them?
Well, we talk a lot with the, it's the same groups that work with us that partner with the nonprofits, the Nature Conservancy, Audubon. And pretty much I'm given the direction anytime someone in the company comes to us and says, hey, you want to do something with the X group, that's a group that, you know, Disney supports anyway. I mean, we do support all these groups financially. You know, we say yes. It's a great story to tell. It adds content. It's usually can be a surprise for the guests to see these kinds of things. Like, who expects to see the Audubon Society over at our Audubon, Florida, by the Purple Martin display, or National Wildlife Federation in these areas? So it falls into that category. You know, it's a chance you can do something, help tell a story that, you know, the more guests know about the National Park Service, hopefully the more support they'll get, and it makes for a stronger park system. And you can see Mickey, just a classic Alton Thera, Ficus, and Lysimachia.
But we'll see rangers here then too.
Yeah, some of the days, there's, I don't know, we don't have the schedule yet, but there are going to be park rangers in their costume with an umbrella talking to the guests about the National Park Service, which I think is going to be fun to see. That's going to be the photo op to get, is the Ranger Mickey with the park ranger with your family. I'm sure there'll be a line back to the flower towers there.
So very good.
You have any questions? Just taking the time.
He was my strongest on social media yesterday, so everybody loved Ranger.
Yeah, well, you know, we thought this was going to be a strong display, and the minute I was on my way to work, probably 6 o'clock, and I got a phone call from Patrick Zuzak, who's the horticulture manager. He says, "Man, come straight here. You got to see this character. You don't know. I mean, we saw him at the nursery. You knew he was good. Until you get him in the park, you're never confirm it. But he's strong. And then with the whole Chip and Dale play, we really like that. Now, this is a bed, perfect example of how things have changed. Horticulturally, those bedding plants are way too tight. We always say that during Flower and Garden Festival, we're not just planting bedding plants, we're painting a picture. So we'll keep putting in flowers until we get the look that we want. And that oftentimes, I mean, those are probably on 4-inch centers. Where normally a bedding plant you plant on an 8-inch center, but this is the show we're after. You know, people come to see that just mass of flowers. And also want to point out some flowers you very rarely see in Florida. Once we started going to early March, we started using things like the larkspur, and there's even some poppies in there. Now before Flower and Garden started early, I don't think I've ever seen a poppy in Central Florida. We won't grow it as a perennial, of course, like they do up north. Once they start going down, we'll just compost them. You know, on the same theme that I was talking before, how we're always looking to improve it. Yesterday I was driving in and I get a text message, of course, when I was at a red light. It was a photo of this bed, and expressing some concern it needed something. Now, it was a fine looking bed. We had the flower towers in the back, and we had Minnie and Pluto, but a lot of them were saying we just need something more. So Patrick and his team knew that they had this planter that we use sporadically all over. Some of y'all may have seen it in Downtown Disney at one time.
Yeah.
We've actually had it for about 15 years. We very seldom use it. we just thought that would be a great element to put in here to raise some color up high. So another example of, wasn't planned, but we looked at it, wasn't a bad show, but like always, we're saying, how can we make the show better? Do we have anything anywhere? So we weren't even planning to use this piece during this festival. It's amazing that, you know, they can get it out, get it planted, and looking that good. I will tell you a secret, the dichondra, which is hanging down the side of that's the silver plant. Let me make that simple. That actually comes from hanging baskets. We ripped apart some of our hanging baskets and stuck them in there. So, you know, we can take advantage of all of our resources, that's for sure. Also wanted, if y'all want to come over here, so when we first started 4 years ago, when we added food and beverage to the Flower and Garden Festival, one of the concerns or the thought was, how can we differentiate what we're doing during Flower and Garden for food and wine? Well, the main differentiation is done by the culinary team, where most of the dishes are going to be very hot, lots of herbs, vegetables, grain crops, not as much focus on you know, just the meat. It's usually a lot more vegetable matter to our vegetables. But we also wanted to reflect that in the show. And if you've been to Flower and Garden, you know the horticulture department does all kinds of containers around there. We didn't want that look. We wanted to make it more of a garden. So even, of course, some of our gardens are actually gardens. They're in the garden. But we can't do that everywhere because we have limited space. So our goal was to make even these outdoor kitchens feel like a garden. And we manufactured a bunch of these boxes. And then we get with the chefs probably in November to find out what their recipes are, and we do our best to match a lot of the plants that go into the outdoor kitchen. As it turns out, they also had a utilitarian aspect, because the minute the front of house people saw them, they say, wow, wait, we can use these to help delineate our lines. So now these actually become queue line indicators, as well as helping to tell the story of the plants, of the food that's being served. And a lot of these things we leave all year long. I would imagine, maybe not these, but when you go to American Adventure, the pecan trees, because they smoke over pecan wood. The first year, all we could get for pecan trees, I mean, they were sticks. It was silly looking. But now they're slowly starting to branch out. So we've had those in the box for 4 years. I'd imagine we might have those 10 years before we have to replace them. And then at the nursery, we have a place we call the Grove, where we just keep all of our year-to-year edible plants growing all year long. And of course, a lot of them we roll out during food and wine as well. Any questions?
The people don't eat this?
Oh, they do. You very seldom see, she asked, do people eat it? You very, very seldom see ripe fruit and vegetables at any of our food and wine, flower and garden displays. For instance, this year, an exception this year might be we're doing in West Future World an edible flower garden, where, you know, you can eat a lot of flowers. I imagine most people won't eat those, although you never know, they might. And there's an irony in that my first Flower and Garden Festival, we had a media event, and they had cocktails. And one of the cocktails that my wife heard about, so now she loves, is, of course now I don't see one, a viola, pansy. I remember when we got the drink, this was a Cosmopolitan, they dropped violas in them. My wife loved that idea. So at the house, occasionally, if we have violas, I've got to make a drink with a little flower in it. She likes that. But as you know, we do a lot of, we have several new food gardens. We also have an urban spice garden that's new at Morocco. It turned out really well. You'll see it, it's not labeled yet, none of our signs are up, but if you walk after the event today, it's out in the bed that's in front of the restrooms. We actually have containers in a bed, which has a lot of different herbs and spices, which is ironic because that was the original design of Morocco, is to show edible plants. That was their, and we still try to do that in the landscape. Nice. Any other, we also have, returning from last year, the pepper garden at Mexico, where we show the different peppers, and then the Italian kitchen garden at Italy, which is actually one of my favorite gardens. Those containers are nice. Any questions? Concern with the warm weather that we were having in December and early January. Those violas don't love, and actually even the petunias don't love warm weather. So no one was happier than us when we started getting the cool spells. And we were doing dances of joy when we got that heavy rain the other night, and then it got real cool because these things just exploded. I can tell a difference between today and Tuesday when I was out there. So this is actually going to be one of our, I think, our strongest years. Of course, the horticulture folks get really caught up into the flower show, but you'll notice we did something, maybe you won't notice, I'm going to tell you. We did something different this year. Usually our backgrounds are the light colors, and we use the blues as the kind of splotches. This year, the background color really is the blue, and the other colors are the accents. We really like that look, certainly nicer. And again, we have almost 240 floating gardens. We doubled the number of those several years ago. Again, you know, when we were putting this together and we started looking at displays, a lot of us in November started getting really excited because we realized, you know, there is a lot of new stuff at this festival, and really we have more content this year than we've ever had before. We did a lot of new content last year, and then we just added on top, like the edible flower garden's new, the bamboo garden, I hadn't even mentioned that, a bamboo garden in China is new. We brought back the dragon in China from guest request. It has been a great new festival. And again, I'm also 3 brand new large gardens, the playground, which we're going to get to peek into, and the Music Garden Melodies, it took me a minute, the Florida Fresh Garden, and then Rainbird has a new garden in East Future World. They were there last year, but it's a brand new garden, so it's a new effort for this year.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Illuminated gardens coming back? Nighttime?
Yeah, most of the gardens are illuminated, and the playground over here is illuminated. The one in Future World's not. Most of the guests by that time of day are in the back of the park. And of course, all the food and beverage things have to be illuminated because you have to have lighting to serve. So enjoy the citrus we're all seeing right now, because if something doesn't change, there's not going to be any left in this state in the next 5 to 10 years. So we have that disease called greening. One of our participants at the Flower and Garden Festival is the University of Kentucky. Excuse me, that's where I went to school. I wish they were a participant. That would be the University of Florida. And really, if there's any hope for the Florida citrus industry, it's them. There's people working round the clock really trying to breed new greening-resistant citrus, and let's all hope that they do, because Florida would be a lot poorer state without citrus. But we show it here, and make sure you get in the festival center this year. Every year, the University of Florida provides speakers to our festival, really traditional horticulture talks. We still have a lot of guests who want to come and just learn how to garden, and it's great that we have them helping us do it, as well as master gardeners, which is a lot of fun. Master gardeners are gardeners, just average citizens who have taken classes and passed tests, and have to volunteer enough hours, and then they're considered a master gardener, and they staff the festival center every day that we're open, answering our guests' questions about gardening. So the last several years, we've been able to take this tour into the gardens. Because of several factors, mainly due to the rain, we're not able to actually go into the garden, but I did want to make sure you could see the garden being done and what it looks like. So Michael here is about to open this up. I got to ask y'all not to come much further than this, so go ahead and get your photos, and then try to move back for the next person to go in. So here you can see, right now the Forever Lawn folks are putting down their Forever Lawn, which is a great play structure. This is excellent play structure. It's brand new from Forever Lawn. This is a young children's play equipment on the left, the older on the right. And what's so exciting is look at the musical equipment in the garden. So the kids are gonna actually be able to come in here and play the musical equipment. Mickey is gonna be leading the band and there's gonna be all kinds of innovative planting. We actually have a drum set where we planted the entire drums with plants. And believe it or not, probably by Monday afternoon, this garden will be done. That's how quick we get it. It's funny, they look, and then suddenly it's work, and now it's ready to go.